Hello, I'm Erth and today I'm going to show you how to make a good start at DayZ, what to do, where to go, the general basics. I decided to make this as a lot of the time I'll find people in spawn locations that I'll end up taking with me that are unsure of how to play the game, and a lot of the old tutorials for DayZ are very outdated now that it's changed since they were made. Also, DayZ is a pretty rough game to start, as it just plonks you in the world and tells you to go with no tutorial whatsoever. This video will be taking into account that you're on a daytime server that is not RP and allows a third-person camera. I will also be using the DayZ DB Charnara's map to assist with this video, which I'll link below. So without further ado, let's begin. First things first is that you're almost always going to spawn on the east side of the map. Common places to spawn are Kambishovo, Solnichny, or Berezino. You can also spawn in areas further north or further south such as Elektro or Svetlo, but the previous towns are more common to spawn in. When you first spawn, you are likely to spawn on a beach. The first thing you want to do is craft an improvised knife by looking directly at the ground of the beach and pressing the interact button to search for stones. It may take a few tries before you find one. Once you have this stone, you want to hold it in your hands by dragging it into the large box on the player screen, which can be opened by pressing tab. Once you have the stone in your hand, repeat the process of interacting with the beach floor and you should have created an improvised knife, which can be put straight into your hands. This improvised knife is also useful for opening cans of food and even while fighting. The next thing you want to do if you didn't spawn in one is to reach a town. Items will rarely spawn on roads or random areas of the map. They will only spawn in buildings or structures of some kind. On your way to this town, you may find yourself encountering a zombie. If this happens, you want to either drag the improvised knife into your hands or use the hotkey you have set to it. Raise your fist by pressing the spacebar and left clicking to attack with it. You're aiming to hit a zombie's head since that's their weak spot. Since you are beating a zombie with a blunt object, you should check each time it drops that it will not be getting up, as you may have only knocked them down. There are 3 things to do when you reach this first town. Number 1 is to find food and drink. Food can come as fruit and vegetables, as canned food, and various others. Canned food must be opened with a sharp object, which is why you have your improvised knife. Simply drag the knife over to the desired can of food, and it should be open with 100% of the food inside. Make sure that if you are using another sharp object to open cans of food, make sure the item is pristine, otherwise you will get a smaller percentage of food. Drinks can be found as cans of beer, soda, and can also be found as PET bottles or canteens. If you do find one of these, make sure to pick it up, as bottles and canteens can be stored and refilled at wells. You can also drink directly from wells, which takes longer than it used to. Before one of the previous updates, a player could spam drink on a well and they could get easily hydrated. However, now it is a lot slower, so I only use wells to fill bottles. As expected, your hunger and thirst increase the more you run, so if you're wanting to stay safe, just jog to where you want to go. Step 2 of things you want to do in this town is to get clothed. When you spawn, you start off with a shirt with no slots, a 4-slot pair of pants, a torch, and a battery. This is by far not enough for what you're going to need. The first thing you will probably find is a jacket. The spawn towns almost always drop a variety of different 4-slot jackets, such as the bomber jacket, the hoodie, the wool coat, and the quilted jacket, which all come in various colours. You can also find the raincoat on washed up boats on the beaches that you spawn on. You should not need to replace your pants for a while, but in rare circumstances you can find hunter pants, which are better camouflaged and have 6 slots instead of just 4. Once you have your main clothes, you want to find a bag. The smallest bag you can find in spawn areas is a child's briefcase, which has 12 slots. The second largest bag you can find is a Talon backpack, which has 25. And likely the biggest you will find is a dry bag, which has 28 slots and keeps all of your items dry. In extremely rare circumstances, you may find a mountain backpack, the largest bag in the game at the moment, with 35 slots. Once you have one of these items, you should do step 3, which is arming yourself. Your improvised knife will not be a weapon you will want to be using for very long, as it takes a long time to lay a scratch on a zombie, so you will want to find anything else. By far the easiest and most reliable main hand weapon to find near spawn locations is the Mosin, which uses 7.62 by 5.4mm rounds. The Mosin can be used as a sort of sniper when equipped with either the PU scope or the long range scope, which are both relatively easy to find. You can also attach a Mosin compensator, the M91 bayonet, or an improvised suppressor to the Mosin. The other most common main hand gun is the SKS. This is an easy gun to find at first, but finding ammo for it is by far the hardest part. The SKS uses 7.62 by 39mm rounds, which can also be used for the AKM. These rounds are incredibly common in the airfield, so if you want to switch to the SKS when you reach there, it would be a logical choice, as the SKS is a very good gun. The SKS can also use the PU scope, however cannot use the long range scope. An SKS bayonet and an improvised suppressor can also be used. These weapons do not take up any slots in your bag, however you can only take one at a time. You can also hold one in your hands, but you'll drop it whenever you're entering vehicles or heading up ladders. You can also find what I consider offhand weapons. These consist of pistols, sawn-off shotguns, or the Longhorn. These weapons are not incredibly rare, so you may find one or two. If you have the space, pick them up, aside from the 1911, as the clip rarely spawns. The best offhand weapon to find in my opinion is the Magnum. The Magnum takes 4 slots in your bag, takes .57 rounds, and can take out most people and zombies within 1 or 2 shots. Now that you've done all that, it's time to start travelling. You may have already travelled between towns to collect food, clothes, or weapons, but that won't affect your journey too much. Your end goal at this point is to reach the Northwest Airfield. This is a high loot area, but it's also incredibly dangerous, as is the route there. I use 2 main routes based on the location on the map I spawn on. If I spawn on the south of the map, I travel all the way along the south shoreline until I reach Kamenka. While heading on this route, you can also stop off at the Balota airfield. Balota usually has decent loot, but it's not worth risking your life for if you're on a high population server. When I reach Kamenka, I start traveling north and make a stop at Pavlovo military base. This location is also very dangerous, but it can be very rewarding if you actually check the bases there. Once I have finished there, I keep traveling north through Zelenogorsk and then Putushka until I reach Vybor. Vybor is an excellent location for loot, as is right between the Northwest Airfield and its own military base. I would advise you not to travel to the military base, as the only way there is running right across an open field. However, if you're on a low population server, it might be worth risking. Once finished in Vybor, there is only a little trip until you reach the Northwest Airfield. If I spawned on the north of the map, I head to Svetlojarsk, up to Novo for a short while, down to Syriana Polana, and then to the Northeast Airfield. Unfortunately, the Northeast Airfield got changed dramatically by the devs and now gives a lot less loot than it used to, but you can still make a trip through there. Once you are done in the Northeast Airfield, you can head to Krastanav, then around the Black Mountain until you reach Gvozno. Once in Gvozno, I usually make my trip over the mountain, stopping at Devil's Castle for a short while, and then coming out the other side at Grishno. You can also just head around the mountain, but this saves a lot of time and keeps you hidden for the most part. Once in Grishno, you only need to make a short trip up the hill to reach the airfield, and you will appear on the preferred side of the airfield too. Anyway, once you get to the airfield, it's really up to you what you want to do after that, but that's all I have to say on this tutorial. I'll try and make some more whenever they change up the, if they make any changes that will affect this, I'll try and update it, but yeah. So best of luck and happy hunting. I'll probably try and get a WoW video out next. Probably should have been the first one, but nope. Anyway, see you later.